All right, let's do this. Episode 4. Hello and welcome back to PBT. I'm your host, as always. I'm Caleb Lane. Welcome back. In today's episode, we are going to be discussing the third movie as well as starting a new fan fiction. So, without further ado, let's get this podcast started. All right, we'll begin with the movie review slash opinion nation. I totally did not just make up that word. Um, but anyways, guys, today we are going to be discussing the third movie, The Time of the Great Giving. So let's just start like we always do with the plot. Meteorites near the Great Valley cause a drought that threatens the inhabitants' lives. Mr. Threehorn becomes incredibly protective of the remaining water and mean to the inhabitants, forcing Littlefoot and the others to set out to find more water. And, this is one of the main reasons that makes me hate Tops or Mr. Threehorn so much, because he's a little bit of a butt. The group is pursued by a trio of teenage dinosaurs consisting of Hip, Mutt, and Nod, who inadvertently cause Mr. Threehorn to think that Littlefoot is a bad influence. He's not. When Littlefoot and the others find a small lake, the bullies emerge and claim the water hole for themselves, demanding Littlefoot and the others where did I go? The others to keep silent about their discovery. Littlefoot and the others flee from the bullies, but during the pursuit, Hip, Mutt, and Nod are chased away by a wasp, and the children discover the reason behind the blockage of the water source. Before they can return, the other inhabitants and tell the other inhabitants the truth, lightning strikes a tree, igniting a wildfire that spreads throughout the Great Valley. The dinosaurs barely make it to safety at the edge of the mysterious beyond. When the children tell the adults of their discovery, disagreements about what to do erupts among the adults. Hip, Nod, and Mutt set out into the mysterious beyond on their own to get to the water first. Anticipating danger that Hip and his cohorts have gotten into, and recognizing commonality with them, Littlefoot and the others follow to help if necessary. It becomes so when Hip mistakes a tar pit for water and gets stuck in it. Alright, so first of all, how do you mistake a tar pit for water? Like, I know they're dumb, but like, seriously. tar pit, water. Two completely different things. After Littlefoot and his friends haul Hip out, the adults arrive, and Hip is harshly scolded by his father. Realizing that he has been acting no different than Hip's father and feeling sorry for Hip, Mr. Threehorn kindly lectures Hip's father on how Hip is a bully from being mistreated. Afterward, they all decide to work together to find the water. But before they can take further steps, the herd is attacked by a pack of velociraptors. The pursuit leads to a dam of boulders created by the meteorites that caused the drought. As the raptors and the adults battle, the children, including Hip and his cronies, work together to break the dam. They all watch as the freed water washes away the raptors. The water also puts out the fires which are still burning in the valley. Finally, they manage to survive and land on the opposite bank. The, the herd returns to the Great Valley, but they discovered that the fire has destroyed most of their green food. Luckily, the dinosaurs find the spots in the Great Valley where green food still grows. They proportionately move from one verdant area to another and share everything that they find. This pattern results in the event being called the time of the Great Giving. And that was the plot of the Land Before Time 3, the time of the Great Giving. And honestly, it's like I said with the Great Valley Adventure, it's not my favorite sequel, but it's not the worst sequel ever because it's not Wisdom of Friends. So there was, according to this, there was three songs in the movie. Three main songs, I guess, in the movie, which are When You're Big, Annoying, Standing Tough, and Kids Like Us. So there's that. Now let's get into. And, honestly, there's certain things that are like good about this movie, but there's other things that like aren't so good about this movie. I mean, it's like a great movie and all, but like the annoying part about it is how rude that Tops is. Because I mean, things could have gone differently. but I do really appreciate the fact that he stood up for somebody being bullied, even though that person is a bully themselves and he's also a bully. But but who am I to who am I to you know like who am I to judge? Like who am I to judge? Like I mean I get where he's coming from. Like I know he's a butt, but and I know he could have handled it better, but honestly I'm pretty sure he was just like worried. He was just worried, you know. He's still annoying and I still don't like him. But you know, you can't but you can't have but I guess you can't have literally like you can't have but you can't have everything you want. Despite you know despite all right, so but but I digress. um and of course I'm offline again. Stand by. All right, y'all. And hold on, I keep getting knocked out of the Wi-Fi. All right, so before we start our podcast, not our podcast, our fan fiction. We're going to answer a few some would you rather questions. All right, the first question is: would you rather be as loyal and brave as Littlefoot, or as sassy and independent as Sarah? I, I definitely have to go with as sassy and independent as Sarah. Would you rather be as sweet and optimistic as Ducky, or strong and silent as Spike? I think I'd rather be sweet and optimistic, even though I'd rather be. I'm not. I mean, I'm sweet, but I'm very pessimistic. But I would love to be optimistic. Would you rather be as energetic and curious as Petrie, or as resourceful and wise as Grandpa Longneck? I would. I'm literally the most unenergetic person I have literally ever met. Like literally, what you know. So I would, I would love to be energetic, and I'm also very curious. So I think I'm going to have to go with that one. Although I wouldn't mind being wise, but I feel like that's like an old person type of thing, and I don't want to feel old. So we're going to go with that. Would you rather have a sharp tooth like Chomper, or a thick hide like Spike for protection? I want to be protected by Chomper. Like, I don't know why. I don't know why, because he feels more protective than Spike, but like, would you rather live in the lush Great Valley with all the other plant eaters, or explore the dangerous, mysterious beyond with its hidden wonders? I'm saying in the safety, y'all. We're saying in the safety of the Great Valley, even though I'm an omnivore. Which funny story? I actually tried being a vegetarian, and I was a vegetarian for like 2 years. I was a vegetarian from November 2022 to I think about August or September 2024. And honestly, it was nice and all, but I just couldn't keep up, just because a lot of stuff had meat in it, and it was like really hard to like not. And also, I'm not gonna lie, I missed eating meat. And there's still, after being a vegetarian so long, there's still, there's I there's still like regret when you eat meat, especially like the first week I started eating meat again. I would be fine all day. Then I'd be like in then I'd be like in bed, and I'd be like, "Oh my God, what have I done?" But you gotta push through it. All right. Would you rather travel through the thick fog or brave the sinking sands? I would definitely travel through the fog. Would you rather live near a volcano or fly like a pterodactyl? I want to fly like a pterodactyl. I want to fly. Would you rather have to find a new source of water after a drought or find a new source of food after a leaf gobbling swarm? I would rather try to I would rather find a new source of water. Would you rather have to outrun a shark tooth or outsmart a pack of smaller predators? I'd rather outsmart. You gotta outsmart them. I'm not good at running. Would you rather be able to fly like Petrie or swim like Mo? I want to fly. Like I said, I want to fly. I'm scared of heights, though. I'm also scared of water, so it's kind of a lose-lose situation. But it's like, but you don't have to. I guess you don't have to like. I guess I don't have to fly that high, though. I don't know. Would you rather have the power to control rain or the power to make food grow instantly? I want to make food grow like literally instantly. Like that would be cool. Would you rather have a magical tree star that grants wishes or a loyal sharp-toothed friend who protects you? I want to I think I'm going to go. I want the magical tree star. I wish for a bazillion wishes, although I don't think that's how it works. Would you rather be able to communicate with dinosaurs or be able to time travel to their era? Probably communicate with them. That would be cool. But just don't like eat me. But anyways, those are all the would you rather questions we have for you today. Now, my friends, it's time for the fan fiction. This one is called Quest of the Lost Souls, Chapter 1, End of the Exile. Millions of years ago, long before the animals of today existed, the world was filled with a large variety of animals which are now extinct. Most of these animals were known as dinosaurs. Most ate plants, others ate meat, and others ate both. The life of a dinosaur was simple: eat, sleep, and in short, stay alive long enough to reproduce. Although their lives were not as complex as the lives we lead today, they found danger to be staring them in the face more often than not. However, most were content to live this way. They didn't really have a choice, but some wanted more than their fair share of what life had to offer. Some who believed that they deserved more than their fellow dinosaurs. One of these was a flyer called Toronto. Toronto had been banished from the home which his sister and her children lived in. Their home was known as the Great Valley. He had been banished for throwing the lives of 5 children, one of which was his own nephew, into danger while desperately trying to claim a stone which he believed to possess a tremendous power. He was wrong. After he was banished, he searched far and wide until he found a wandering herd which had not had the misfortune of meeting him before, and accepted him as a member. For 5 years he traveled with them, being led by the hollow horn in charge. He did not wish to follow. He believed that he was destined to rise up and bring flyers back to their rightful place in the world. He thought flyers had ruled the world a long time ago, when landwalkers appeared. All the time he was with the herd, he planned over and over on how to get power and, more importantly, revenge on those who had been blind to his destiny. During the herd's travels, Toronto had found two followers to replace Rinkus and Sierra. One was jet black with a crest on his head. Toronto never admitted it, but he resented the fact that this feature made Toronto appear shorter. He was known as Ark. The other was a dull crimson color with no crest. He was called Rax. Toronto had never told them of why he had left the Great Valley until the last night of his exile. The weather was cold that night. Most of the herd had settled down to sleep. Toronto was finishing the story of what had happened, and so they forced me to leave, humiliating me in front of everyone. But they will pay when I find the true stone of cold fire, he vowed. Don't waste your time. The stone is a myth. It's not real, Rax said to him. Toronto had often thought of that, but never liked to think that all his struggles may be in vain. It must be, he replied. I was born to lead. There must be power out there somewhere which I am destined to find. Ark laughed dryly. There may be no such thing as a stone of cold fire, he said, but I have heard of a much greater power in anyway. Toronto was intrigued by this possibility. What sort of power? He asked. Well, I have no idea if it's real or not. My father told me that when landwalkers first appeared on the earth, they took away the souls of the flyers who used to rule. What happened? Asked Toronto, getting more and more excited by the minute. Without their souls, the flyers were no longer able to fly as high as they could. Now that the flyers were closer to Earth, the landwalkers had power over them. What about their souls? What happened to those? Toronto inquired. My father told me that the landwalkers imprisoned them in the walls of a large underground cavern. If a flyer should enter, the lost souls will be released from the rock and give the flyer incredible power as a way of giving thanks. That flyer will then be able to fly higher than ever and rule the land. Is the cave real? Toronto asked, barely whispering by now. Oh, yes, Ark replied. I know that it exists, and as a true test for the chosen one who enters the cave, only two entrances exist, and each is near impossible to get through. What are these entrances? Toronto asked. I don't know, he replied. I do, said Rex. One way is through a river, and this river is a tunnel which leads into the cave. Wouldn't the cave fill up with water? Asked Toronto. Rax shook his head. The tunnel goes uphill at one bit, so the water can't get through. Of course, if you went that way, your wings would be too wet to fly out again. What's the other way? The other way is to take a tunnel through a smoking mountain, which is nearby. What about the fire water? The tunnel has a sharp turn. Once you get to there, hold on, where was I? The fire water would not be a problem. I see. Toronto had one last question. Where is the cave? Ark and Rax looked at each other. The cave is directly underneath the heart of the Great Valley. The Great Valley, echoed Toronto. The others both nodded. Very well, I will return to the Great Valley now that my sentence is over, and I will seek out this power. Will you come with me? He asked them. Of course, Ark replied. I'm in, said Rex. Then what are you waiting for? Asked Toronto. Let's go. The three flyers took to the air, flew off into the black sky. Those elders of the Great Valley shall be the first to pay when I claim this power. They will pay, Toronto thought to himself as they flew, their bodies silhouetted against the great night circle. Chapter 2. Return to the Valley. In the Great Valley, Littlefoot, Sarah, Ducky, and Spike were playing happily. Petrie was not interested in playing. He knew that yesterday had been the last day of his uncle's exile. He wondered why Toronto had not returned. He remembered how Toronto had said he would return one day and prove himself to the herd. Where are you, uncle? He thought to himself. The others noticed him sitting by himself. Hey, Petrie, is something wrong? Littlefoot asked him. Petrie shook his head and tried to smile. No, me fine, really, he assured them. Sarah snorted. Ha, you don't look fine to me, she said. Spike shook his head to agree. She is right, she is, said Ducky. Petrie gave up. Fine. Yesterday was me Uncle Toronto's last day of banishment, but he no come back, he explained. Well, if it were only yesterday, maybe he's still making his way back. Just give him a little time, said Littlefoot. Or perhaps he just hasn't thought of any way he can try and take over the valley yet. I'm sure he will be back when he thinks of something, Sarah said unfeelingly. Why do you say that, Sarah? Do you not believe he might be good now? Do you? Asked Ducky. I can't believe that you of all dinosaurs would think he might be reformed after what happened last time, Sarah said to her. Ducky was uncomfortable about talking about the Stone of Cold Fire incident with Petrie right there. Well, he did save me at the end. He did, Ducky pointed out. Only to shorten his sentence, Sarah argued. Stop talking about my uncle, Petrie screeched. Me no want to hear people argue over whether he bad or good. Sarah and Ducky both apologized. An awkward silence followed this small outburst. In the end, their families calling them home ended the uncomfortable moment. Unknown to them, Toronto had been watching the argument from the shadows. Now that he knew Petrie wanted him back, he would not have to hide from everyone. This would make finding the cave containing the lost souls much easier. See you tomorrow, Petrie, he thought to himself, grinning. All right, Rex, show me the way into the cave, Toronto said. Rex shook his head. The smoking mountain exploded recently. We will have to wait a few days before the fire water is low enough for us to go in. Toronto sighed in annoyance. Very well, he said. I'll have the power soon enough. In the meantime, I must try to convince the residents of the Great Valley that I have changed my evil, like I said. That way, they won't try to stop me from fulfilling my destiny. Are you sure you can really convince them of that? Asked Art. Of course, replied Toronto. I told my nephew that I could contribute much to the herd, if they gave me the chance. This is the way I will do it. The three flyers continued to make their plans for the day, unable to sleep in the anticipation of gaining the power of the lost souls. Chapter 3. Trustworthy Again? 2 days after returning to the valley, Toronto was ready to reveal himself to the elders. He doubted that he would trust him to not get up to anything, but he devised a plan to trick them. Ark and Rags would kidnap a baby and put it into danger just where the herds could see it. At the last minute, Toronto himself would rescue it. That should get the respect. That night, Rax and Ark crept up on a clubtail nest. They quickly snatched up the smallest and lightest baby and flew off into the sky. The next morning, the father told the other herds about his missing child, while trying to comfort his mate. Littlefoot and the others were watching from nearby as usual. Who could have kidnapped a baby? Sarah wondered. More importantly, why? Said Littlefoot. Petrie and Ducky were at a loss for words. A loud scream suddenly drew everyone's attention to a small ledge where the kidnapped baby was hanging off the ledge. It must have been a small ledge, but big enough to hurt a child of that size. We have to help it, we do, said Ducky. But how we do that? Asked Petrie. They were too late to do anything. At that moment, the baby slipped and fell. Before anyone had time to react, a blur of light brown swept under the falling baby and lifted it upward. The herds watched as Toronto returned to Earth and set the baby down onto the ground, where it was retrieved by a distraught mother. The herd stood in dumbfounded silence, not believing the very thing they saw before them. Petrie was the first to break the silence. Uncle Petrano, is that you? He asked in a small voice. The large flyer nodded. Yes, it is. It is my nephew. I have returned, he said, smiling. Most of the dinosaurs present expected Mr. Threehorn to say something in protest to this moment, but even he had been silenced by Toronto's act. It was long before the parents of the clubtail gave their thanks to him. Everyone truly believed that he must have changed his ways like he said he would. Even Sarah's dad was now willing to accept him back into the herd. Littlefoot and the others were soon taken in by Toronto's plan too. A cold wind swept through the valley. It was as if everyone had been mesmerized, but then again, one is not used to witnessing miracles. Chapter 4. Settling In. It was a good 10 minutes before anyone could get over what they had just seen. Eventually, Littlefoot's grandpa broke the silence. So, what brings you back, Toronto? He asked, struggling to find words which would not sound insulting. Toronto smiled, somewhat deviously. Why, Longneck, he said, I thought you, of all dinosaurs in this valley, would be anxious to keep track of time so as to know when I would make my return. Grandpa was confused. I beg your pardon, but I do not follow you. He said. Then it dawned on him. You figured it out. Toronto said, seeing his face of realization. So you have remembered about the punishment you sentenced me to 5 years ago. Toronto was enjoying this. Finally, everyone who was paying him the attention he deserved. Well, I suppose we are no longer able to keep you from this valley anymore, then Grandpa said. Mr. Threehorn opened his mouth to say something in protest, but then he changed his mind. Of course, had I known that you were to do a spontaneous act of good, then I would not have been so harsh in my judgment, Grandpa said, having been fooled by Toronto's plot. Everyone else was taken in too, although some, like Sarah and her father, had their doubts at first. Everyone seemed to have forgotten about the past and now hastened to welcome the hero in their home. Toronto smirked to himself. Part 1 completed, he thought. Life in the valley swiftly returned to normal. Soon, Toronto was treated just like everyone else. While he liked this as a change from following a Hollowhorn's commands, he was still anxious to get the lost souls. For a while, he had been so happy just being with Petrie again. And he seriously considered forgetting about the cave and his destiny. However, the thought of power proved to be too much of a temptation for Toronto to resist. He had to get down to that cave soon. Petrie was so happy to have his uncle back. He started to spend less time with his friends and more time with Toronto. It was not long before they noticed it. Ever since Toronto came back, we've seen less and less of Petrie. Sarah was complaining. Ducky and Spike agreed with her. Littlefoot, who realized that this is how they must have felt when he chose to play with Allie rather than them, wisely decided to not voice his complaints in case Sarah rounded on him. Instead, he decided to stick up for Petrie. Petrie is just happy that Toronto's back. That's all, he said. The last Toronto came back, Petrie still spent time with us. And I'm sure he will again. We just have to give him some time. Maybe, said Sarah. But just how long will it take? Littlefoot could not think of an answer. He too was now starting to worry. Far away from such troubles in the mysterious beyond, word of Toronto's return had stretched as far as here by word of traveling flyers. The news soon reached a herd of longnecks. It was Allie's herd. One night, after the children in the herd were fast asleep, the children were talking about Toronto. Allie was just about to drift off to sleep when she heard one of them muttering something about the great valley. Wondering if the herd was planning to return there for a while, she crept up closer to them to hear what they were talking about. We were planning on heading back toward the Great Valley, but now that Toronto has returned there, it might be safer if we head somewhere else, she heard one of them say. She had heard all the stories about Toronto before and knew that he was not to be trusted. That is why she could not believe her ears when she heard that everyone in the valley had been taken in by his act. The flyers who had told the Longnecks about Toronto had even overheard his plan. So Allie also heard them talk about the lost souls in her herd. The lost souls had been a legend that had been carried down for years. She wasn't sure if it was real or not, but she did know that they were fabled to be powerful. Yet Littlefoot did not know of this, and Toronto was able to work right under his nose. Allie was worried for her friends now. She returned to her nest and tried to sleep, but the thought of Toronto in the valley just kept turning over and over in her head. Eventually, she opened her eyes and looked up at the stars. I have no choice. If Littlefoot doesn't know what Toronto is up to, then I'll go and warn him, she thought. She looked over at her herd. She knew that she would never have a hope of convincing them to turn back toward the valley. Knowing that she could travel faster alone anyway, she decided to strike out alone. Casting one glance at her mother, she headed off in the direction where she had seen the bright circle touch the ground earlier. She knew that she would be very lucky to make it to the Great Valley alive. Even then, she doubted that she would ever see her mother again. Chapter 5: The Argument. As the bright circle rose, the shadows on the earth grew shorter and shorter until the dawn had passed into late morning. Allie stirred from her sleeping place. After taking the edge off her hunger by consuming the leaves of a few nearby plants, she continued on with her journey. She had been traveling for 3 days now and was repeatedly wondering why on earth she was traveling on dangerous lands without the protection of a herd, just to warn her friends of a rumor. I guess I answered my own question, she thought. I'm trying to help my friends because they are my friends. With that thought satisfied, she turned away from the quarry ahead of her and onto a flat stretch of land ahead where there was nothing to hide, enemies creeping up on her. But this flat open space would not last long. As Petrie continued to spend time with Toronto, Littlefoot, Ducky, Sarah, and Spike noticed it more and more. As time went on, Petrie stopped seeing them altogether. I don't care if he's just happy to have his uncle back. He's starting to ignore us completely, an agitated Sarah said to the other three. I know, we agreed to give him some time, but I think he's had more than enough. You are right, Sarah. You are, Ducky agreed. Spike nodded in agreement as well. Littlefoot was hesitant, but he too agreed that something must be done. He just hoped that there would be not much of an argument. Later that morning, Sarah and the others approached Petrie's cave to find him talking with Toronto again. Eventually, Toronto flew away, no doubt to check on the volcano tunnel leading to the Lost Souls. Littlefoot and the others approached Petrie. Pleasure to see you again, Petrie said in a sarcastic tone of voice. Petrie, however, did not seem to notice this and greeted his friends with enthusiasm. Hey guys, he said, me no see you in a long time. You noticed it too, Sarah said, not holding back the sarcasm. I thought it was just us. Petrie was not quite sure what she was talking about. What you mean by that? He asked. Enough games, Petrie, she shouted. We know that you would rather be spending time with your precious uncle than with us. But you could have at least told us. Petrie was taken aback by the sudden accusation. I told you we should have let Sarah do the talking, Littlefoot whispered to Ducky. Meanwhile, Petrie was trying to defend himself. Just because me happy to see my uncle, no mean I don't want to see you guys ever again, he said. You could have fooled me, Sarah shot back. Luckily, this argument was cut short when Petrie was called up to the nest by his mother. See that? Sarah asked, with a sneer. He couldn't even care enough to say goodbye. Well, what did you expect? Asked Littlefoot. You made angry by getting angry at him. You made him angry by getting angry at him. Now he'll probably want to spend even less time with us than before. Well, we won't be missing out on much, Sarah said and walked in a huff. Littlefoot sighed in annoyance. He just hoped that this time, this matter would sort itself out, with Petrie and Sarah mad at each other. He, Ducky, and Spike were left to play with each other. Meanwhile, Toronto had made his way into the lava tunnel to check it out. He soon found the lava, and to his delight, he realized that the lava was low enough for him to just glance through to the next cave. It won't be long now, he thought. He made his way back to tell Rax and Ark the news. And that is where we are going to end today. Um, Hope everybody is enjoying this fan fiction so far. We will pick up in next week's episode. Um, with chapter 6. Um, Also, I'm sorry this episode is shorter than it would usually be. Um, just because I have somewhere that I have to be today, and I'm honestly not sure like when it's going to happen. So I want to be able to get this. So I wanted to be able to get this filmed, get this recorded, and also like have enough time to like have enough time to like upload it and schedule it and stuff. I mean, technically, I could do that whenever, but it just makes more sense to do it this way. But I'm sorry this is a few minutes shorter than it usually would be. But I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, and I will see you awesome people in the next one. Bye.